up, guys? So, last week I ran my first ever 10K for charity. This is something that I've been training for since January, and to be honest, at first it was just a means of losing some of the lockdown weight that I gained last year. If you go back through my content which I made last year, you'll notice I got progressively chubbier as the months went by, and when I noticed it myself, I saw like I gained an extra chin. I was like, alright, I need to do something about this, okay? This shouldn't be. So, with the gyms being closed, I started running. I became the very thing that I used to mock. I'm a jogger now, yes. Also, I wasn't really working all that much last year, so the lack of a job and purpose kind of got me feeling a bit down, like I was feeling a bit aimless, and I just wanted to set myself a goal that I could achieve, so I thought if I signed up for a 10K, then that's a goal for me to try and attain, but also I could raise some money for a charity in the process, so it was a win-win. I set myself an achievable target of raising £300 for my chosen charity, Alzheimer's Research UK, because I honestly didn't think anybody would care that I was running a 10K. But I was absolutely stunned by the generosity, love, and support of my family, friends, and of course you guys. And thanks to your generous donations, I smashed my target at £300 and ended up raising £1,177.42 for Alzheimer's Research UK. So thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart for your kind words of encouragement, support, and very generous donations. And as a token of my appreciation for your donations, I wanted to do a review of a running themed movie where I would give shout outs to all the people that donated to the cause, all those of you that sponsored me. And I took a poll on Twitter, and you guys picked the classic 1994 film Forrest Gump, directed by Robert Zemeckis, for me to review. So as I talk about this movie, you're gonna see all the names of lovely donors on one side of the video. So those are all the lovely, generous, amazing human beings who sponsored me. So thank you so much again. All right, without further ado, it's time for me to review Forrest Gump, and y'all know it's coming. Run, Forrest, run! I'm not even sorry, it had to be done. Forrest Gump is based off the novel by Winston Groom and is a fictional, crowd-pleasing yarn directed by Robert Zemeckis about the life of a mentally handicapped man called Forrest Gump, played by Tom Hanks, who regales bus bench strangers and, by extension, us the audience, with the story of his life. And in all fairness, it's a great story. He tells it so well. It's got all the usual ingredients: a girl next door love interest, Ginny, played by Robin Wright, a wise, loving mama, played by Sally Field, endearing friendships like Lieutenant Dan and Bubba. There's also war, loss, tragedy, encounters with important historical figures, the American dream, love, destiny, and lots and lots and lots of running. So what do I think of Forrest Gump? To be honest, there's not much that I can say about this film which hasn't already been said. This film has been so discussed in the film community that I don't know if I got anything all that new to say, but there's no denying that Forrest Gump has legs. Pardon the pun, yeah. Forrest Gump has legs. I don't just mean Forrest Gump, the character has legs. The movie has legs, because it really has stood the test of time, this film. Like, Forrest Gump is one of those films that most people have at least heard of, even if they haven't seen it. Like, if I hear the words Forrest Gump, immediately 5 or 6 things spring to mind. Not only the characters like Lieutenant Dan and Bubba and Mama and Ginny, but the iconography of the film as well. The bus bench, the box of chocolates, the scene where he's running and the leg braces fall off, the feather, and also the quotes. This film is extremely quotable. Run, Forrest, run! Stupid is as stupid does. Mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. So yeah, Forrest Gump certainly has longevity. What do you guys think of when you hear Forrest Gump? Let me know in the comment section down below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you want more movie, TV, and Oscars related content, don't forget to click subscribe. Now, believe it or not, this very much beloved film does have its haters. I have met people that genuinely dislike Forrest Gump. They say it's too sappy, too safe, too long, and unworthy of all the awards that it won back when it came out. This film was nominated for 13 Oscars and managed to win 6. One for Best Actor for Tom Hanks, and that was 2 back-to-back wins for Tom Hanks. He won the previous year for Philadelphia. And also it managed to win Best Picture. And this was a very stacked year for Best Picture nominees. It managed to beat the likes of The Shawshank Redemption and Pulp Fiction to the top prize. Now, I personally don't think Forrest Gump was the best of these 3 nominees that year. And like, The Shawshank Redemption and Pulp Fiction, they make frequent appearances on many cinephiles' top lists of all time. But I would make the argument that all 3 of those films, Pulp Fiction, Shawshank, and Forrest Gump, they've all stood the test of time. Like, they're all still films that we talk about to this day, they're still discussed, they're still beloved. A lot of Best Picture nominees and winners just get forgotten about. So, even though I think Shawshank or Pulp Fiction would have been a better, more deserving recipient of Best Picture, Forrest Gump still stands up, I think, on its own legs. Of course I'm saying legs! The reason Forrest Gump works as well as it does is because it's well written. The characters are so memorable, and the casting of these characters is spot on, with some career highlight work from Robin Wright, Sally Field, Mykelti Williamson, and Gary Sinese, but of course, Tom Hanks as well. There was a very real risk that Tom Hanks's portrayal of a simpleton like Forrest Gump could have aged poorly, especially given the sensitive times that we're living in right now, where we're having more conversations about what roles able-bodied actors should and shouldn't play, especially given how few parts there are out there for actors with disabilities. But I think if Tom Hanks was going to be called out for his performance of Forrest Gump for being insensitive or distasteful, then it would have happened by now. It's a testament to Tom Hanks's abilities as an actor and his compassion and sensitivity as a human being, because his approach to Forrest Gump was so smart and tactile. He never went too far with the character. Yes, his accent is a bit comical, maybe a little bit exaggerated in places, but I don't think he ever takes it to a point of ridiculousness or where it's coming from a place that's really insensitive. I think he judged it just right, and he did such a great job of playing Forrest Gump, making him so earnest and lovable. And arguably, Forrest Gump might actually be Tom Hanks's most recognizable role. And I don't say that lightly because he's had so many iconic characters over his career, but because he won an Oscar for it and the character has so many catchphrases or quotable lines, he has kind of become synonymous with Forrest Gump. History will still be the judge of this, but for now at least, Forrest Gump is one of those Tom Hanks roles that we celebrate or cherish, whereas it could have easily gone the other way if he'd done it badly or been insensitive or done it the wrong way. It could have been a huge backfire on him. It could have been a role that haunted him, one that was a stain on his career, but thankfully it's the former and not the latter. The direction is perfect by Robert Zemeckis. He gets the tone absolutely spot on. Yes, it does come with its fair share of schmaltzy moments, but those moments land with sincerity because the film is so genuinely earnest, just like Forrest himself. Because the story is told from Forrest's point of view, it's supposed to feel wholesome and pure because that's the way that Forrest sees the world, as very idealistic. And one thing that this film definitely doesn't get enough credit for is the CGI, which was quite cutting edge for its time. I don't think when people think of Forrest Gump, they think of it as a visual effects movie because the visual effects in it are so well hidden that you're not even aware that you're looking at CGI when it's on the screen. That's how good it is. That's the best CGI, when you can't even tell what you're watching is CGI. There are so many scenes in Forrest Gump which rely quite heavily on visual effects, like the scenes where they insert Tom Hanks into actual archive footage of history, where he's like meeting presidents and having conversations with them. The scene where he's at the Olympics as well, where he's playing ping pong. That ping pong ball was CGI, but it's hard to tell that it's not a real ball. But also the most convincing bit of CGI in the whole film, I think, is how they show Lieutenant Dan after both his legs are amputated. It's one of those things where as I'm watching the film, I'll be trying to figure out in my head how they actually did that, because it's so impressive and looks so real that I want to know how they did it. That's how convincing it is. The CGI is absolutely amazing in this film. It really was a pioneer for visual effects at the time, and it still holds up pretty well. The only thing that I think doesn't look as convincing is the CGI feather that's floating around at the beginning and the end of the film. The soundtrack is also awesome. As the story takes us from the 50s all the way through to the 80s, it's the choice of songs that they use that really lets you know what time period that we're in. And this film features like pretty much every banger that has become synonymous with the particular decade that it's from, and it's used to such great effect. As far as negatives go, the thing that I'm not crazy about Forrest Gump is its political stance and the fact that it doesn't really have one. I mean, according to the producers of this film, this is meant to be an unpolitical film because Forrest is so blissfully unaware of the ugliness of politics, war, racism, bigotry. The film doesn't really take a stance, but it does address a lot of political topics. There's so much going on in the background whilst history is playing out, and Forrest is just partaking in it passively. But I guess I do take a little bit of an issue that it doesn't really answer any of the tough questions. It only addresses them from a safe distance. Doesn't ever tackle any of the heavier subjects head on. It doesn't take a stance. And because of that, it is a very squeaky clean, wholesome, sugary way of looking back at American history. And yeah, I guess I wish it had a little bit more grit or chest hair. But as I'm saying it, the film is told from Forrest's point of view, and he is supposed to be seeing the world in an idealistic way. I mean, life would be a hell of a lot easier, wouldn't it, if we all saw the world through Forrest Gump's eyes, because ignorance is bliss. But in terms of telling a story, what kind of message is that saying to the audience? That life will be easier and you'll succeed more if you just stick your head in the sand and you're unaware of all the bad stuff that's going on in the world? Yeah, it's one of those things where the story is just, it's so glossy. Like, as lovely as it is to watch, it is a very glossy film. It's why I think if you tried to remake Forrest Gump for today's audience, it wouldn't really work, because it doesn't really reflect the ideologies of a post 9/11 America anymore. It's a very much a product of its time. And yeah, I think audiences would reject it like a bad transplant. But still, even though Forrest Gump is a very fluffy film and it's very much a product of a different era, there's something about it which I find very comforting. I love going back to Forrest Gump. I've seen it loads of times. There's just something very warm and cozy about this film. It's entertaining, it's charming, and it's got this lovely story about the human spirit, which it's one of those films it's kind of hard to resist. It's a very palatable film, which I think is part of the reason for its longevity over the past few decades. So let's ask them 3 questions. Firstly, would I watch this again? I mean, I've seen this film loads of times. Of course I'm going to rewatch it again. It's one of those films that if I was flicking through the channels on a Sunday afternoon and I saw Forrest Gump was on, I would probably watch it, because it's just like the film equivalent of a warm hug. It's very comforting and familiar, and I just enjoy it. It is a very enjoyable film. So yes, I will rewatch it again, undoubtedly, at some point. Question 2, do I recommend it for you guys? Yeah, I mean, I feel like Forrest Gump is one of those films that most people have seen, but if you haven't, I do think it is worth checking out, because the characters are so memorable, it's a very quotable film, and it's just very entertaining. It really lives up to that whole thing that Forrest Gump does in the film. He tells a good story, and it is a very well told story that's done with such enthusiasm and passion, and even if it is a bit sugary, it's still very well executed, so well edited together, well written, well directed, well acted. So yeah, It gets so much right. It gets more right than it gets wrong. So yes, I do recommend it for you guys. And question number 3, what score do I give it out of 10? Like I said, Forrest Gump is not a perfect film. It's not what I would have picked to have been Best Picture that year, but it has endured over the decades. There's something about it which still speaks to us. It really is a fantastic watch. So I'm going to give Forrest Gump a score of 8.5 out of 10. But as always, guys, it's just one bloke's opinion. I would love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Forrest Gump? I'd love to hear your thoughts in that comment section down below. Remember to hit that like button as well. Also, big thank you to all of you that sponsored me for my first charity 10K run. It means so much to me. Thank you so much for your love, support, and generosity. If you want more movie, TV, and Oscars-related content, don't forget to click subscribe, and if you want to follow me on any of my socials, those links are in that video description down below. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. For more things related to movies, TV, and popcorn culture, I'm Luke Airfield, and I'll see you next time. Run, Forrest, run!